It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the coach Perry, and Pat, the shot caller Flaherty. Here we go.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports, a weekly sports talk show here on YouTube, where you can talk about 10 sports topics that we come up with every week: international sports, local sports, across the country, across the globe. I am Pat, the shot caller Flaherty. Man, as always, I am joined and co-hosted by my partner, Brennan, the coach Perry. Brennan, how are we doing this week, Bob?
What's up, Pat? I first want to give a big shout out to the U.S. Men's Ryder Cup team for bringing the cup home. Huge win.
Sure.
And then also for the NBA for saying, hey, get vaccinated or don't get paid. So, hey, those are big news that I like saying. And, not topics tonight, but just wanted to give out a little shout out to those guys. But, hey, big shout out to you for leading the show.
Big shout out to you for also leading the show, Brandon. Good job, buddy. We don't have the Ryder Cup on our topics list tonight, but yes, huge dominating win for the U.S. As we said, they needed to do that this year. So, folks, as always, you're watching us here on YouTube. You want to subscribe to Comeback Sports on YouTube. It'll filter all the content that we're dishing out to you right to your YouTube subscription to the Comeback Sports channel. Then you don't have to go searching for it. It'll just go right to your account. So make sure you subscribe. Folks, we also have a call-in number. So if you want to call in to the show, make sure you see that number right there at the top of the screen. It's called that phone number. You can call in during the show. You can leave a voicemail. You can call in at any time. And also, folks, new this week, we're gonna have the live chat featured on our show. There you see it right there. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can jump into the live chat, ask us a question, give us a comment. Just, hey, say what's up. It doesn't matter. Jump in there. We'll do our best to acknowledge your live chat presence throughout the show. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And finally, folks, our Twitter handles, are at the bottom of the screen as well. So we're going to kick things off here with topic number one. Biggest topic this week in New England, without question. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots, coming back to Foxborough for the first time as a visitor. As a diehard Patriots fan, this is going to be the weirdest thing I'm ever going to watch. Brandon, what do you think about Brady coming back to Foxborough?
Well, first off, big shout out to producer Ben as well for all these new cool features, because I know Rusum and Reese is going to be all over that chat, and it's going to be popping up the screen here in any second. But, man, I think this is big news, but I think it's one of those things where if you're a Patriots fan, you got to have tempered expectations going into this weekend, because your team is going to get slapped around. I'm honestly thinking that the Buccaneers come in here and beat the Patriots 41-10. And that's exactly what I'm thinking based off of what I've seen the Patriots putting on the field and what I've seen the Bucs putting on the field this season, but also that Tom Brady's coming off a loss, and we all know how he does coming off of a loss and bouncing back. He was even on sports radio saying that all he's got in mind this week is coming back and bouncing back after the loss that they had this week. So all he's thinking about is getting the W, which doesn't shock me with this guy, because all he does is win, obviously, with all those Super Bowl titles. And we've got to watch a lot of them here in New England. But obviously, big news, having him back. We all love him. You've even heard the Patriots coaches, the running back coach, and even, Bill Belichick's son saying it's hard to root against Tom Brady. And I think it is for all of us here. So we're all rooting for him. I personally loved NFL Sunday last weekend because the Patriots came on at 1 and then they had the Bucs on at 4:25. I just absolutely enjoyed watching them. I wish they would do that more for us here in New England so we could watch them both. But yeah, Patriots are looking really sad right now, and the Bucs are going to be coming in here looking really strong for a bounce back win. I'm expecting Tom Brady to absolutely torch the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm expecting the same thing. The patch of 7 looks good. I think we had unrealistic expectations coming into the season for the Patriots. You have a brand new rookie quarterback. You have, I think, 11, including Mac Jones, 11 new starters on this team, and a lot of them are on offense. So for this offense to be clicking on all cylinders through the first 3 weeks of the season, I think it's just unrealistic. One of the biggest struggles with the Patriots that I think is one of the biggest surprises is the team's offensive line. They have not played well. They were supposed to be the strongest, most ready-to-go unit of everybody on the Patriots team. The offensive line has played terribly. I know they lost Trent Brown, but everybody else in the line hasn't played well either. You know, Isaiah Wynn has been disappointing. David Andrews, who started off okay, wasn't great this past week. You know, Onwenu's probably been maybe the best offensive lineman. The two guards, Onwenu and Mason, have been solid, but not spectacular. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they've struggled, especially offensively. I do expect Tom Brady and the Bucs to come in here. They're a more talented team. They've been together longer. They just won the Super Bowl last year. Like you mentioned, they just lost to a really good team too. If anybody polled, you know, NFL fans, the NFL, the Rams would be at the top of the list concerned. So Tampa Bay just lost to a really good team. It's not like they lost to, you know, a team like the Dolphins, like the Pats lost to in week 1, who are solid, but not a team that is going to be reckoned with in the postseason. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a slaughter. I'm just, you know, I'm praying for that thing where it's just like, this is just a unique situation that maybe both teams make some mistakes because of the awkwardness, so to speak, of what the night's going to be for both these squads.
I don't know. I'm not expecting many mistakes from the Bucs, honestly. Coming in here, it's a night game, like you said, that Sunday night game where it's the only game in town. Everybody's watching it, you know, lights, camera, action. And we all know Tom Brady plays his best in those moments. So I'm expecting a big night from him. I'm also expecting a big night from Rob Gronkowski. If he can come back, because he did take a big hit in that Rams game. I'm hoping that he heals himself up over the week. I'm hoping they're smart and just let him rest and don't even practice him. And because I'm expecting another big game out of him coming back to New England as well, because I think that kind of flies under the radar as well, because it's another one of our stars coming back. And hey, even Antonio Brown, man, I think AB is going to be back off of his COVID vacation. And so he should be back in the lineup. I know we only had him for basically 14 days, if that. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing what Antonio Brown can do, because he always seems to play well with Tom Brady. But this is a team that they have so many weapons. And like I said, Brown didn't even play last weekend. It didn't even really matter. Obviously, they didn't get the win, but it's just they have so many weapons to go to. So I'm just expecting a big night from Tom Brady coming back. And I really believe him where he's thinking that he's not really thinking too much about what happened over these last 20 years and what he did in New England Patriots uniform. I think he's coming in and thinking, what can he do this week to get his Tampa Bay Bucs better, and what can he do to improve and bounce back after the loss that they had last week. But yeah, man, I guess, hey, we're going to move on tonight, and we're going to move on to topic number 2. Excuse the awkward bounce into topic number 2. We're still trying to figure that out. At least I am. Sorry, producer Ben. I killed that.
No, it's all good, man.
But topic number 2, I think, is a good one. We were kind of just talking about rookies having their struggles, especially Mac Jones. And it's definitely, he's not the only one when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I think when you look at the 5 first-round pick rookie quarterbacks this year, I think you have to grade them on a curve too, just depending on who they have around them, but even also how the rest of their team's playing, because again, they're rookies. I think that the rookie that's having the most trouble, and I think we expected this, is Zach Wilson of the Jets. I mean, he is very talented, very good athlete. He's one of those quarterbacks who can just flick the ball and it goes 60 yards. But you know, Trent Dilfer was on Ryan Russillo's podcast this week on The Ringer, and he was talking about all these different guys, and he runs a quarterbacks camp and has a really good interview for some of this stuff. And he was saying that Zach Wilson, you know, kind of tries to just make that massive play. He tries to chuck it 50 yards down the field all the time. And one of the reasons why Tom Brady, even Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, they can all make the big play, but they're great because they know when to say, oh, you're going to take all the receivers over the top. Okay, I'm going to dump it down here, second down for 7 yards. It's going to be 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 9. So, you know, this Zach Wilson needs to learn that. The Jets haven't really been doing anything to kind of bring him back to almost like a Mac Jones level, where you're almost not throwing it downfield at all because you're learning to take those check downs and those hot reads first. And then you can kind of unleash the rest of your arsenal with that big arm, with that athleticism, get him out of the pocket, let him throw it downfield. Zach Wilson's trying to do too much, especially when you're a young quarterback and you don't have a good team around you. I think young quarterbacks just try to do that because they don't understand that it's better to just kind of move the chains with the easier checkdowns and so forth. So Zach Wilson is struggling too. And then I'll give you one more guy for me who I think is struggling most surprisingly, and I think that's Trevor Lawrence. You know, the Jaguars are obviously not good. It's a brand new infrastructure there with a brand new head coach. They lost Travis Etienne in the offseason, Trevor Lawrence in college. So I think that was a big loss for him too. They have decent players on that team. I mean, Laviska Shenault is a good wide receiver. You know, Jerome Robinson, good running back. You know, they have some players. Their offensive line isn't spectacular, but they have some players there. And Trevor doesn't look like he's, you know, that top quarterback out of the draft. And I mean, sometimes he makes throws and you're like, okay, that's why. You know, he just throws a BB to the boundary or something like that. But he hasn't looked great either. So he's expected to be this once in a kind of a general quarterback. So these rookie quarterbacks are going to take time. All of them are. But those two guys, to me, have struggled the most to kick things off.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially with Zach Wilson. He has just really looked like a boy amongst men at times, you know, the vice versa of what we usually say with that, because he just really looks like he doesn't belong at times. And I think he's obviously lacking some confidence now, too, which is tough to see because we're only a few games into the season. So if you're a Jets fan, I know you're struggling to see that with your rookie quarterback having zero confidence moving forward. And I think he's going to make more mistakes before it's actually going to get better. But it's really one of those things like, hey, I'm a coach, so we talk to our quarterbacks, and it's really one of those things like if you're not throwing a touchdown, you should be throwing a check down and be smart about it. Take care of the ball. Those short throws are the ones that will actually set up the long, big touchdown throws. If you keep hitting the check down, you keep hitting the tight end across the middle, or you're running back out of the backfield, they will have to respect it. And then that's when you will catch them in a slip coverage deep. And then that's when you can throw that deep ball. It's not like we're playing Madden here where you can just keep tossing the ball deep and see what happens. And I think a lot of times these rookie quarterbacks too rely on that because in college you can get away with that sometimes. You can get away with just being like, hey, guess what? I'm going to throw a 50-50 ball here and let my receiver just out-athleticism. I don't even know if that's a word. Just show his athleticism and jump over the guy and outplay the guy, right? But here in the NFL, pretty much everybody's on the same athleticism level. So it's kind of hard to be able to throw a 50-50 ball and have it go more in your area. It's more 60-40 on the defense there that they're going to make a play on the ball when you throw those balls up like that. And I think Zach Wilson found that out, especially against the Patriots with his 4 interceptions, which 3 of them were just absolute gifts. But with Trevor Lawrence, I think Urban Meyer's got to take some of the blame there. Being the head coach, it's his system. Our job as coaches is to put our players in a position to succeed. And I just don't really think I've seen Trevor Lawrence be put in a position to succeed right now with the weapons that are around him. And so I think Urban Meyer's got to do a better job. And one of the things in particular he's got to do better is let this kid run the ball. If you remember in college, when he would run the ball, it keep the defense honest where they had to respect him. So they just couldn't sit back in the passing lanes and he would carve them up. Or if they tried to play coverage, he would run the ball sometimes for big runs for touchdowns. So I think that's what we need to see more of Trevor Lawrence. And then just quickly, Mac Jones is really starting to be a disappointment for me. He really is. The first couple of games, I've said, okay, the first game he made a couple of rookie mistakes. The second game he made some improvements. These last 2 games, it's been pretty much the same as game 2. I haven't really seen much upside or much improvement. So I should have talked about this in the last subject, but people are going to bring up Cam Newton again and saying, would the Patriots be better off with a veteran quarterback? But it's just really one of those things where these young quarterbacks are definitely going through the growing pains, and some of them more than others.
Yeah, I think with Mac Jones, just looking, like I said before, at the offensive line, he just doesn't have any time. You know, people want him to throw downfield, but you need to protect your quarterback in order to throw downfield because the receivers need time to get down the field. And if you watch the game against the Saints, you know, Jonnu Smith, who is supposed to be, you know, a dynamic weapon in the passing game. I mean, even Patriots beat writers are saying, I don't know what happened to that guy in this last game. I mean, he had plays where he didn't know how to run. I mean, and then he would go and try to catch the ball. It was sad. And I really like Jonnu Smith. I remember when they signed him, I thought it was going to be perfect for them. And he just,
Agreed.
you know, he dropped the ball probably 4 times. I think he had at least 3 drops, maybe.
Yeah.
And especially that one that went off his hands for a pick 6. So, that's why I'm still kind of judging Mac Jones on a curve a little bit. And, we could talk about Fields if we want to, but he hasn't played enough, and then Trey Lance hasn't played at all. So, I think it's those first 3 guys to judge right now. And I would say Wilson, then Lawrence, then Mac Jones. But there's only 3. There's 14 games left in the season now. So there's just so much time left, and it's a long season, especially for a rookie quarterback. Folks, we're going to move on to topic number 3. And in topic number 3 here, in sticking with the NFL, La'el Collins of the Dallas Cowboys was caught bribing a drug tester. He missed a bunch of drug tests. It was also caught bribing a drug tester, got suspended for 5 games. The Players Union got it reduced down to 2. He appealed the whole thing. And then the independent arbitrator said, nope, it's going to be 5 games. There's plenty of evidence here that you did this. It's going to be 5 games. Brendan, what is this guy thinking?
Are we talking about Leon Lett or, because this is, Cowboys 2.0, Leon Lett 2.0 for the Cowboys. And this one I think is even worse because he tried to bribe an NFL official. And it's just like, come on, big man, you really thought that was going to work out? And I guess sometimes these professional athletes just want to toss around their money and they think it's going to solve everything. But I guess what? The NFL is smart and they're paying that drug tester pretty darn good money, so he can't be bribed, okay? So they already know what they're doing to stop that, man. And it's his job, actually, to report things like that. So I just would wanted to be like a fly in the room there, sadly, to see what the arbiter said, like being like, are you stupid, man? Like, put your bribe away. Or like, how did he try to do it? Did he like try to be like, hey, man, give him the handshake and try to grease the handshake?
Like he's talking to a host at a restaurant or something. Yeah. Did he do it that way with a wad of cash?
Exactly. It's like, how did he try to do that? Or was he like, hey, dangle some new car keys and was like, that's not my car out there. That's actually yours, buddy. Like,
did he just bring a duffel bag full of cash? I mean, that could be a possibility too.
Exactly. Now we're talking like blue chips, man. Just drop the duffel bag of cash at my door.
Nick Nolte style.
It's a funny story because I think he's just being an idiot for trying this. And so I'm glad that the NFL's coming down on him and busting him. I'm not sure what he tested positive for. You could tell me that probably. Obviously, if it's marijuana or something like that, we've had a conversation on this show plenty of times about that. But still, it is against the rules right now by the players' rules and what they agreed to in the current deal. So if it was that, I've still got to say, the NFL is doing the right thing for coming down on him, especially for trying to bribe him. Honestly, they should probably give him a bigger suspension for trying to bribe.
Yeah, and I actually read somewhere that right now, according to the NFLPA, you cannot suspend a player because of marijuana. The rules have changed so much, and there's still a lot going on top of the COVID stuff. So we'll have to get a clarification on that over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this is the NFL. This isn't like college where, there's like a trainer who's also like doing something else with the team and they're doing this and they, and then, it's just some random guy who you're peeing in a cup next to. Like, no, like, this is the NFL. You're not going to bribe people. What are you doing? What are you doing? You play for the Dallas Cowboys. It's the team, probably the biggest microscope in the NFL. That they're going to look at this. You know that this is going to come out. And then he gets it down to 2 games because I think it was the Players Association appealed the suspension. The league brought it down to 2 games. Then the independent arbitrator came in and said, no, we have so much evidence. It's going to be 5 games, and you're going to take that suspension. I don't even remember the last time that's happened when they got the suspension reduced. Then they appealed it, and then it went back up. So now supposedly Collins is lawyers and try to get it back down to 2 at the very least, or maybe even get it thrown out. I mean, right now, you just got to take your medicine, and you just got to sit up. And plus, the Cowboys are winning, so they probably don't even want him back right now. Who knows? But, like, this guy – you got to sit down and just think about this too. And I know he dropped in the draft. I remember a couple of years ago. And who knows why players drop in the draft. There was some off-field rumors. Who knows if they were true? They ended up being not true. So, hopefully this isn't something that kind of sticks with them like that kind of did for a little while too, because he clearly just made a mistake. But I don't know what you're thinking on something like that. So we'll have to keep an eye on Lyle Collins lying to a lot of people over the last few weeks.
Yeah, that's funny. You made me think of what the topic should have been. It should have been Lion Lyle, because he's lying to everybody right now to try to get his things reduced or to try to bribe somebody. But you're right. I mean, if he got it reduced to 2 games, he should have just been like, we won, man. Let's take the medicine. I'll serve the 2 games and I'll come back. Instead, he's an idiot. He tries to bribe them and then gets the arbiter, which normally the arbitrator comes out on the player side generally.
Right.
I won't say all the times, but most times it come on the player side. Instead, they're like, no, man, I can't cover this one up for you. You've done so much. It's going to be 5 games. So, yeah, we'll have to see if this story gets worse. Like I said, Leon Lett version 2.0. But rolling on tonight to topic number 4, and a great topic, I personally think, with an NFL record, and that's the NFL record being broken for a field goal, and the longest distance of a field goal by Justin Tucker. And it doesn't shock me with Justin Tucker, honestly.
No, I mean, he's been amazing. I hate saying it because I don't like the Ravens. I don't like Justin Tucker, but no, he's unbelievable. He's been so good since he came into the league.
Yep.
And he's just been one of the best kickers in the NFL, probably since Adam Vinatieri. And it doesn't shock me. He's got a huge leg. He's always been, and they're in an arena, so they're indoors. So obviously in a dome, it's a little bit easier to kick a deeper field goal. Matt Prater, who had the 64-yarder, which was the previous record, he kicked it back in December of 2000 in Denver, outside. So that's a crazy good kick. The difference, though, is Prater did it just before the half, and it was an awesome thing that he did. He set the record, but there was still a whole nother half to play. The fact that it was a 66-yarder and it was the very last play of the game, it was overtime, correct? Or no, it was the last play of the game.
End of regulation, I believe.
End of regulation. It hit that. They added to the drama because it hit the crossbar and then bounced through the goalpost rather than, a lot of times when it hits the crossbar, it clangs out or clangs off the front and falls forward, and the field goal is no good. It hit the crossbar and bounced through the goalpost to give him the longest field goal in the history of the NFL. Just an unbelievable kick with huge circumstances. The Ravens coming off a big win over the Chiefs. You don't want to let down against a team like the Lions. They almost had that sort of trap game situation, but this field goal gives them the win and sort of saves them a week after a huge win. This is huge for the Ravens and just an unbelievable kick by Tucker.
God, I love seeing the reaction of these Lions fans just absolutely being devastated by that kick going through, because most of them were probably laughing, being like, this is not going in. Look how deep he is. He was actually standing on, I believe, the opponent's like 48 or 45 or something like that. He was standing on the other side of the field, and the ball was placed down on the other side of the field. And he made it. A 66-yard field goal, the deepest field goal in NFL history. And like you said, I will got to give credit to Prater for kicking the 63 yards outdoors in the conditions in Denver. But you also got to think, right, the air's thin there, so you got to give him that little bit of an advantage there with the high altitude. But you're right. I think it might be a wash because indoors there's no wind. It's 70 degrees in there, perfect. So it might be a wash on the conditions, and the 3 extra yards with Tucker is just maybe that much more, a little bit more impressive. But I mean, just an amazing kick. And like you said, for the win, for the W, I was throwing up the W before if people were wondering what I was doing, but throwing up the W. So the kick for the win, it was just amazing, especially 66 yards. I've never seen anything like that. And like you said, Justin Tucker has just been amazing since he came in the NFL. So it's just something that did not shock me at all with his consistency. And we all know he's got a big leg.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing too, with the Lions fans, it's like, how can you be a Detroit sports fan right now? I feel so bad for them. The Lions have not been good for so long. Now, congratulations, Barry Sanders. And that they're seeing their quarterback, Matt Stafford, now with the Rams in LA, lighting it up. Hopefully, he's hoping to bring his team to a Super Bowl this year with this awesome defense and these receivers. And then you got, the Pistons, who have been bad recently. Although they just got Cade Cunningham, so hopefully things turn around. The Tigers suck. The Red Wings have been in the past. It's like these Detroit sports fans they just can't seem to get out of their own way. So
imagine being Jared. Imagine being Jared Goff.
No, I know. It's like Jared Goff, but he fits perfectly in Detroit because it's kind of this whole same situation as how everything has gone so poorly for everybody involved. So feel bad for Detroit. Unbelievable kick by Justin Tucker. And folks, as always, if you want us to check out more out here on Comeback Sports, make sure you subscribe to the Comeback Sports channel on YouTube. All your content will be fed right to that subscription. So make sure you check that out. You can also follow us on Twitter. You'll see our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen. We're going to move on to topic number 5 here on Comeback Sports. And topic number 5 is Lewis Hamilton, the Russian Grand Prix of Sochi. He's been obviously this entire season, and Lewis Hamilton takes home the Russian Grand Prix. We saw Max Verstappen climb all the way up to second after being so far back in the grid. We saw Lando Norris kind of lose it towards the end. Just a crazy race over the weekend, Brandon. What did you think about the Russian Grand Prix?
I mean, it was exciting, honestly. I think it was an exciting Grand Prix to watch if you were a fan, and I think it's undeniable that it was exciting no matter who you were rooting for, just because the action changed drastically from the start to the finish. Even the start was just amazing, obviously, with, Lewis Hamilton getting a little bit of wheel spin, didn't get off the line great. Daniel Ricciardo had an amazing start, and then there was Sainz and Norris battling down into turn 1 where Sainz won out and was leading the race for a little while. But then Lando Norris came on, has been showing amazing form lately, and took the lead of the race and really did not look back, was just absolutely tearing that race up. And then, Lewis Hamilton did a great job of battling himself back into position, and just like a champion would, putting himself in position for when an opponent would make a mistake so you could capitalize. The rain came out. McLaren made the strategy call, keep Lando Norris out. And I believe Lando Norris even said himself that he made the final call not to listen to the engineer and say, I'm going to stay out here. And so he made that call. The rain started falling really hard, and he just could not keep it on the track, where Mercedes made the decision to say, hey, the rain is getting worse here, Lewis. It's going to get worse. We've got to come in and put the set of inners on. Lewis said, okay, did it on that next lap. And then where I really knew Lando Norris was going to be in trouble was Lewis Hamilton's engineer, Bono, came on to Lewis and said, Lando stayed out. He is going to struggle. And that's when I knew it immediately there. These engineers will call it. They know they've got all that information on the pit wall there. They've got the radar. He knew where the rain was falling. And sure enough, Lando Norris couldn't keep that car on the track. And I mean, if you go back, there was another battle between Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, and I forgot who the third car was later on in that race as well, where they stayed on slicks, and they were all struggling to keep it on this track and also battled each other. So it was an amazing battle, and it was also like a survival mode to see if you could even get back into the pits and put some inters on. But, Mercedes made the right strategy call yet again, brought Lewis in, and then Lewis Hamilton just had an absolute masterclass of a drive. Like I said, as a champion, putting himself in that position. And then when Lando Norris made the mistake, he was right there to pounce, didn't look back, went on to win the Russian Grand Prix, his 100th race win of all time, which we're going to cover that next. But that's an amazing feat in itself. And it also gives him a 2-point lead now in the battle with Max Verstappen, and this back and forth battle that we consistently see will go to the end. But this Russian Grand Prix was exciting from start to finish, and it was just amazing to see Lewis Hamilton get the win.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I think right around lap 46 or 47 is when the rain started to come. And then it was lap 49 when Mercedes decided to bring Hamilton in. And that's when Lando Norris, you're right, on the comms, he was like, no, I'm not coming in. They asked him in the box. He said no. and kept going. And then you see him slide at lap 51. So, and that's where Hamilton was able to take over. And that's just the beauty of F1 too, watching that strategic planning between the driver and the team. Sometimes they're right in sync, sometimes over the comms to see exactly, what they want to do and what the strategy is going to be. Sometimes the driver knows a little bit better because he can physically feel the car and how it's driving. Or sometimes, like you said, those engineers, especially with weather, I mean, you got to listen to the engineers because they're looking at everything. And but that's just one of the most exciting parts of the race. Also, I mean, I think you can probably expand upon this more, but we were debating last week if Verstappen should take that engine penalty, and seeing him finish second, it's probably absolutely the right move. I mean, that's the fact that you were able to take that penalty and also still finish second means you didn't lose a ton of points in the race between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And now that engine penalty's gone, and now you can just focus on the rest of the races the rest of the way. So I think it was absolutely the right move by Red Bull to take that engine penalty in this particular Grand Prix. And I'm sure you agree, Brennan. And that was a huge play for them too, which just makes this fight to the top races, which we've been talking about all summer long. And now in the fall, it's going to be an unbelievable fight to the finish, and a brilliant move by, a very, very much the right call by Red Bull to get Verstappen that engine penalty and get into second place. And like you said, Hamilton's only up by 2 points now. It could have been even worse if Verstappen was worse with that engine penalty.
I think that's the key there. And, we had discussed it before that I was saying I think Verstappen really got lucky, and not lucky with that he finished second. He earned that. He had a master class of a drive himself to be able to start, 20th overall and get on the podium and finish second. You have got to give him credit for racing himself back up there. No matter how much horsepower he has in his car, he made all the right decisions and made all the right moves at the Sochi Grand Prix to earn that podium. But I just said it was lucky that he finished second, because I was honestly estimating him, and even his own team were estimating him to finish fourth or fifth. And so for him to just surpass their own expectations and earn the podium was huge. And it cut into Lewis Hamilton's championship lead, because it was going to be bigger if he finished fourth or fifth. Instead, with him finishing second, that cut the gap, and now it's only a 2-point lead. So I think it was definitely strategically the right call for Red Bull to take that engine penalty, and Max Verstappen did his job of outdriving the penalty and outdriving the engine penalty per se, both penalties, the grid penalty and the engine penalty, and getting himself back on the podium. But just quickly, Christian Horner said this week that he enjoys firing up Toto Wolff, and that when he says a comment and Toto Wolff has a great reaction, that he thinks it's entertaining and is having fun with it. So honestly, that made me just like Christian Horner that much more, because it's like, it's entertainment in the end, right? And they are two big entertainers in F1, even though they aren't drivers. As the team principals, they're still huge in it. So seeing Toto and Christian Horner go at it back and forth with these comments is absolutely amazing and entertainment at its best. But obviously their two best drivers of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are going to battle it out until the end, with Lewis Hamilton winning the Russian Grand Prix here and getting the edge right now in the driver's title. But we will definitely see that battle continue on, just like we are going to continue on tonight. We're going to roll on to topic number 6, and that is Lewis Hamilton. Once again, we're going to talk about the king of F1. Lewis Hamilton, with that win at the Russian Grand Prix, wins 100 races, 100 Grand Prix, the first ever F1 driver to win 100 races in this long, illustrious history of F1.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and watch the race in Sochi, and you hear over the comms how the team and everybody else is responding to Lewis Hamilton. First of all, they knew right away it's the 100th. They knew probably all week that this was going to be his 100th win if he was able to take the victory. You heard Lewis over the comms talk how much about, how much he understands that F1 really is a team sport. It's one driver in the car, but he's talking about how, everybody on the team contributes so much to all those wins, every single one of them, and how much help he's gotten from everybody involved over at Mercedes. You could tell right away that Lewis Hamilton knew, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about the entire Mercedes team. and how much they appreciated, there was just such a mutual respect over the comms, which is not necessarily we're going to have these intimate moments, but it was pretty cool to watch during the broadcast of Hamilton speaking like that to the Mercedes team, which is really cool. The second thing too is you look at the top winners in F1 racing, and now there's Lewis Hamilton at 100, there's Michael Schumacher at 91, and then third place is Sebastian Vettel right at 53. So it's just like Hamilton, Schumacher, and then everybody else. You have Hamilton, Schumacher, then a couple of guys at 50. Prost is there at 51. It's down again, to 40s. Alonso's at 32. But who the hell is going to reach Hamilton? He's at 100, and there's nobody even active who's anywhere near that. I think the only guy that might even sniff it is Max Verstappen. But other than that, there's nobody else in F1 right now that could even get there, I think. So it's just one of those things where he's becoming like a Tom Brady, where it's just like, it's not that he's the greatest of all time. It's that he's the greatest of all time, and how much more is he going to raise the bar before he retires?
Yeah, no, he is undeniably the greatest of all time. And ESPN did a great thing. Shout out to ESPN. We're not going to hate on anybody here. They did a great video on him being the greatest of all time. And they compared him to Tom Brady and a couple of other greats from other sports as well, saying how hard it is to be called the greatest of all time and putting yourself in that conversation. But he definitely is the greatest of all time, the greatest F1 driver ever to step in the cockpit of a Formula One car. And he is just going to continue to stack the numbers. There's been some other Formula One drivers that are now analysts that are expecting him to win another 30 or 40 races before he retires. So imagine having 100, 130 or 140 wins. And then the next guy's got 91, and then Sebastian Vettel's got 53, maybe 54, because I'm hoping Seb can, sneak out another one here with Aston Martin. But it's just really one of those things, like you said. I mean, the list drops off drastically after Michael Schumacher down to Sebastian Vettel at 53. And then let's just talk about win percentages. Lewis Hamilton has the highest win percentage of all time. That's at 35%, almost 36%. Of the time that he steps in the car, he gets a W. There's only two drivers that are higher than him in win percentage. That's Alberto Ascari. We all know who Ascari is, the Italian driver. He has a turn named after him at Monza. Okay, so that's Ascari. He's at 39%. And then Juan Manuel Fangio, who's another great F1 driver at all time, at 46%, I believe. So that's amazing. Lewis Hamilton being the third all time. And we're talking about, guys that Juan Manuel Fangio was dominant in his era, but he also had the most dominant car in that era as well. And he also drove for Mercedes. So it's just really one of those things showing the history of Mercedes-Benz in Formula One, them having the two of the greatest drivers of all time, arguably, and then having now all these wins as a team in the hybrid era, the 7 constructors championships as well. And honestly, they're leading in the constructors right now, and that leads bigger than the drivers championship right now. So it's arguable that, Mercedes could go on to win the constructors title, even if they don't win the drivers title. But I'm expecting them to win both, like I'm sure a lot of, F1 fans are. But we're talking about the greatest of all time. That's Lewis Hamilton getting 100 race wins. And I honestly think this is a feat that will not be topped by any driver coming up on the grid. I don't think you'll see it repeated, especially if he adds on another 30 or 40 wins. I don't think anybody will get to it. I think the guy you brought up, who I don't even want to say his name in this clip, but he might have a chance of getting to Michael Schumacher at 91. I think he has a better chance of getting to that stat than he does of chasing down Lewis Hamilton. But also, just quickly, you brought up how humble Lewis is, and he always brings up the factory and the team and the people at the factory. That other guy that we know is fighting for the wins this year never brings up the team, never brings up the people at the factory. I would argue somebody to bring up a clip where he does. So it just surely shows that it's a team game. Lewis Hamilton's a team player, but he's also the king of F1. He's the best driver ever. And he's got a lot more wins to come, but right now he's got 100.
Yeah, I think one of the last things you said there is the most important. We don't know when he's going to retire. He's racing for another 2 years, so at least. So, how many more wins is he going to tack on to this 100 and continue to extend this winning total for his entire career? And who the heck knows if it's ever going to be reached? It's unbelievable. So we'll see how many more he gets over the next couple of seasons. We're going to move on now to topic number 7 here on Comeback Sports. And this particular topic, we've got NBA season coming up, and Zion Williamson just came out. Griffin, the general manager of the Pelicans, just said that Zion Williamson had surgery on a stress fracture in his foot back in August. And if you're a Pelicans fan, Brandon, are you starting to get worried about your prize number 1 pick? I mean, this guy who's just an absolute monster out on the court. I mean, I love watching Zion. He's an unbelievable player, but he's now had some health scares over the last couple of seasons that dates back to college and even a little bit in high school. Big guy, foot problems, lower leg problems. That's always a red flag for players in the NBA.
Yeah, if I'm a NOLA fan, I've got to be worried about this, but there's a few things I'm worried about with Zion. I've got to be worried that he doesn't even want to play in New Orleans anymore. He's been vocal about that over the last few months as well, and he's also brought up the New York Knicks. You hate hearing your superstar bring up another team at all, right? So that's the things that worry me about Zion is, does he even want to play in New Orleans long term? But then this injury definitely has to worry you if you're a fan or if you're the front end or front office or if you're the coach, right? Because you're going to lose your superstar here probably for the beginning of the season for an unknown amount of time, and you're really going to have to baby him coming back, because you don't want this injury to get worse and have him to sit out maybe the whole season or the majority of the season. And then maybe, I don't know, who knows, he pulls his trigger and he gets traded, as a lot of players have been doing here in the NBA. And I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but I'm just saying Zion's brought up, like I said, the New York Knicks, and brought up how he doesn't like how New Orleans is handling the roster, and he hasn't really enjoyed his time with the New Orleans Pelicans. So it's just really one of those things where you've got to be worried here, on top of, does he want to play for my team? And on top of that, he's got a big injury that they've now got to nurse here going forward. And like you said, you brought up a foot injury and big guys, and I've got to bring up the other big guy that got a foot injury that was going to be great, and he was young, even though he looked like he was 45, and that's Greg Oden, right? I mean, he hurt his foot, and pretty much there was no coming back from that. That foot just kept getting hurt, and then I believe he even hurt his other foot. So it's just really one of those things, like you said, occasionally big guys in the NBA, I believe even going back to Yao Ming. Yao Ming occasionally had to deal with stress fractures as well. I'm sure Shaquille O'Neal did too. So it's just really one of those things, when you're that big, you're carrying that much weight up and down that hard court, you've got to have a lot of compression in there to be able to take that. And eventually, the stress fractures will build in with all the practice time and all the game time. And it's a long season. It's a haul. So it's definitely one of those things where they are got to be concerned about this, and they've really got to baby it and do the right thing, because you don't want to see this get any worse.
Yeah, you wonder, is there something that Zion can do too? Because he's so heavy, and he's built like a football player. I mean, it's not like he's just big fat guy, but I do think he can lose some weight, and I think that will help. That's certainly, your lower half. You can do squats and power cleans and as much leg exercises as you want to build strength down there. But if your body is holding up this huge amount of weight, and there's nobody in the NBA that's as heavy as him, but only 6'8". There's guys that are, well into 7 feet and even taller that are close to his weight, but there's nobody in his weight class that's even under 6'10". So he's got to probably slim down a little bit. You do wonder, do you kind of lay off just attacking the rim as ferociously as he does every single play? We saw a guy like Blake Griffin. He used to do that all the time. He used to go at the rim and try to just dunk over everybody all the time, and it was effective and hard to stop, just like Zion, although I think Zion's actually a little bit better. You 82 games. You want to have a 10 to 15 year career in the NBA. You got to start thinking about the longevity and what's better for you, what's better for your career, what's better for your team. Even if you play 40 games 100 miles an hour, you're not there for the other 42. So he's got to probably think about style of play and also losing some weight. I think he just has to. I don't even think he's lazy. I think he works hard, but you have to be committed to losing weight to become a better basketball player, not just because you want to look better. So I think that's something a question that he has to ask, that New Orleans has to figure out. And then you mentioned, if he wants to leave and you're New Orleans and you've got a guy who's injured a lot, it's going to be hard to say, okay, we're going to give a new contract or a big contract extension to this player who, even though their talent is worth a contract extension, they haven't been healthy. And now they're saying that they might want to leave for New York. Maybe we don't offer him a contract extension. Maybe we do try to trade him before his last year with the Pelicans. I mean, that's going to be some interesting conversations that their front office is going to have. I think next year is when they would have to decide that. So that's going to be very interesting for the Pelicans at the end of this upcoming season. But for this season in particular, too, you wonder how much, supposedly he's going to start the season on time. Probably not going to play any preseason. You don't play any preseason games, that doesn't help your conditioning either. So how much is he going to be able to run after this surgery? How much is he going to have to condition himself? Is he going to be able to play 5 to 30 minutes a night out of the gate after having the surgery? Or are they going to have to ease him back into it, which is, I think, what they're going to do. But it just makes it more complicated. So this is a complicated situation for an outstanding player in Zion Williamson.
Yeah, no, definitely a complicated situation that could get more complicated depending on how you react to it. I think we tend to forget how young he is, and he's still carrying a lot of baby fat per se. So I think it's one of those things where I think you're right. He could lose the weight, but I think he could cut it into muscle, to be honest. And then I think that could even help him out a little bit more and just, get a little bit more light on your feet there too. And you got to think about something, maybe some, key inserts. And I know that's, not really that high tech, but something just to take off the blow of going up and down. And then definitely got to manage the guy. You got to manage his load. That's definitely what they're going to do when he comes back. I obviously no preseason games. And then I would play him 15 to 20 minutes here for a long time coming back to see how that foot reacts playing 15 to 20 minutes a night. Then if he's feeling good after about a month of 15 to 20 minutes, then I'd say, all right, we're really safe enough to be able to roll him full time here. And then you could even roll him not full time at that point, but roll him 20 to 30 minutes, then 30 to 40 minutes, and so on and so forth, and get him back into full strength. I think that's something that they'd be smart to do if they were the New Orleans Pelicans, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're going to handle it with kid gloves. But, like you said, the other topic is will he want to be traded? And I think that's a topic that's going to come up, and trade rumors are going to fly. Just like I'm going to trade out this topic right now, and we're going to rock on to topic number 8. Let's trade this topic out for topic number 8 tonight, and it's a good one, obviously, when we're talking about NBA stars and their shot skepticism. And we're not talking about, pulling up for a jumper. We're talking about getting the vaccine.
Yeah, the fact that these guys are still – it's so complicated, obviously, it's a microcosm of what's going on, not just in this country, but across the globe. But at the same time, you're a professional athlete. If you don't get the shot, then there's going to be issues. It's going to make things harder. It's going to make things harder on your team. It's going to make things harder on yourself. It's going to make things harder on your career. Everybody keeps saying it's a personal decision, but you not getting the shot affects everybody else in the organization, not just your teammates who are, in their 20s and 30s and professional athletes and probably won't get too sick. You've got coaches who are older on the staff. You have trainers who probably have family at home, trainers who might have kids at home who might have asthma. You have people who work for the team who are going to be around you who might have elderly parents at home or elderly grandparents. You have to think about that. And that's why the NBA wants to get the shot. The other thing is, too, you look at Kyrie Irving, Andrew Wiggins, who plays for the Warriors. With the state regulations, there's a chance these guys won't be allowed into the arena if they don't have a vaccine. If they don't have
home
a shot.
games. Yep.
Right. So for their home games. So, and then what if they go away to California, New York, or somewhere else? It makes things even more complicated. I mean, there's been talk too about Kyrie just even sitting out the season because of this, which is crazy. Although I don't put past Kyrie because he marches to the beat of his own drum. So, then there's a guy like Bradley Beal who had the virus a few months ago, and he's still waiting for more information, which is crap. I mean, he's got plenty of information. Hopefully he's just waiting the amount of time you got to wait after you get it to get the vaccine. But I think he's 75 days out, which means that he's got plenty of time to get the shot since he got the virus earlier. So, some of these guys, I think they just kind of get up there when they talk to the media and just kind of to kind of answer the question when they really just don't want to get it. And it's just a bad idea. The NBA is trying to give these guys a chance to get it done on their own. The NFL, came out before the season and said, if your team gets an outbreak and you have to forfeit a game, you're all going to forfeit paychecks. And what that does is, Goodell and the league are being, proverbial rear end holes to these players, but at the same time, it's forcing peer pressure because other players who have gotten the shot in the NFL are saying to the players who haven't gotten the shot, you got to go get this thing so that we don't lose game checks, because that affects us too, not just you. So the peer pressure is what's going to get these guys to get the shot, and I think other stars in the NBA and other stars in their teams are going to be the ones that have to motivate them and really convince them and give them the correct information and say, this is what we got to do in order to have a good season.
Kevin Durant was already trying to do that this week by saying in his interview, saying, hey, we respect and rely on Kyrie, and we trust in Kyrie that he's going to do the right thing. That's what Kevin Durant was saying in his interviews. So he thinks that Kyrie is going to step up to the plate. He has more confidence in Kyrie than I do when it comes to that, because I have more confidence that Kyrie will just sit out, like you said, because he does go to his own beat per se. But it's just really one of those things where I was saying to many people this week when they brought it up to me that you can be the greatest athlete in the world and the greatest basketball player. That doesn't mean you're the smartest person either. And so that's really what it's coming back to. We're also talking about Kyrie, who's also a flat earth conspiracy guy, right? So that's what I'm saying with this guy. Like, he can have the greatest handle in the world, hit that 3-point shot to win the NBA title, but then go and tell you the earth is flat. So, like, what the heck? Like, it's just you don't know what Kyrie you're going to get, honestly. And that's not us Boston fans being bitter. I loved him with his time here, enjoyed it. Honestly, I enjoyed Kemba Walker just as much as him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're giving him his credit. But at the same time, I'm tearing him down just as much as I tore Cole Beasley down and called Cole Beasley an idiot. It's the same thing, man. You're just not being smart at all. And the NBA specifically came out today, right, backing it up even more, saying if you have to sit out a game due to local COVID protocols, or if you test positive for the virus and you're unvaccinated, you're going to lose a game check. You're not going to receive your game check. You won't get paid. So that's even more incentive for these players to now step up and do the right thing so they can continue to get their millions of dollars. Let's see if Kyrie does it. The ball's in his court, but I'm not sure he's going to do it. I don't have confidence that he's going to do it. He keeps trying to backtrack and even deflect it in every single interview when people are trying to ask it. So it's just really one of those things where you got to question the man's mind and where he is, honestly. But then, hey, on the opposite spectrum, LeBron James comes out over the last few days and says that, I went in and I was skeptical of it, but then I went ahead and I did all my research, and then I decided it was the right thing to do. So I went ahead and I got vaccinated. And I also am recommending my friends and family to get vaccinated and everybody else to get vaccinated. That is LeBron James stepping up and doing the socially responsible thing and using his platform to do the right thing. I really appreciate you doing that, LeBron James. I think it was huge for not only the world and the United States, because many people look up to this guy, right? He's one of the biggest sports figures in the world, but especially in the African-American community, a lot of people respect LeBron James and listen to him. So him just stepping up and saying that is a huge deal. I really appreciate him stepping up and doing the opposite of Kyrie Irving here.
Yeah, that makes total sense too. And the thing with the NBA too is this should be easier for them. There's less players on the team. You've got 15 guys that need to get the shot. So it should just be an easier transition with this. And
Atlanta Falcons are fully vaxxed.
The Falcons are fully vaccinated. The Bucks, the Tampa Bay Bucks are fully vaccinated. Wouldn't be surprised if the Milwaukee Bucks were up there too. Just seeing how many guys on their team have been really good leaders over the last couple of years, the type of team cohesion they had. So, it's just one of those things where after seeing what happened with the NFL last year, where they had to move games around, after seeing what just happened to the Red Sox, we're going to talk about them in a minute. And just seeing with some of these NBA players last season, where guys would get the virus and then, they would be out a couple of weeks, and you're like, this really hurts our season, So just getting the shot makes your season easier. It makes your team have an easier way of it. And then, some players are saying, well, oh, you can still get it if you get the vaccine. Then why am I getting the vaccine? Because if you get it, you're not going to get really sick. And if you get it, because of protocols, you can come back sooner rather than sitting out the 14 days. I mean, all this information is out there. If we know it, then the players know it. They also have representatives from their teams. They have agents. They have people who are in charge of their marketing, publicists. All these people can give them all this information. They have the information at their fingertips. It's not like it's not there for them. It's not like there's some person in some remote area of the country who doesn't have all the information to them. The fact that they just don't want to do this right now, it's still it's unbelievable. And it's not just the NBA players, there's players in all the sports, that aren't on the shot. So, it's very complicated, but the NBA, who's sort of been a leader in working with the community in a lot of areas, I think a lot of folks expected them to be a leader in this area, and they're just not right now. And, their sport is inside, and it makes it harder. It's more dangerous, and it makes them more susceptible to the virus if they don't have the vaccine. So we'll see how this shakes out, Brandon. You got one more thing to add here.
Just quickly, I don't know if it's Ruseman Reese in the comments there, but he's saying for the first time he doesn't agree with us. But hey, Ruseman, that's okay. But you said you respect our opinion. We respect your opinion. That's the key here. It's an opinionated show where we're backing it up with facts. That's all we ask people is come on this with your facts and back your opinion up. So hey, I think that's Ruseman. It probably is, but hey, we love you, Ruseman. Thank you.
Yeah, he's going back to some of our F1 stuff and saying that he doesn't agree with us. He said one thing that Roosevelt said is he's neither Max or Lewis deserve it. So I think he's saying that they did not deserve to win the Russian Grand Prix. Certainly his opinion. We've already made our comments and think that they both drove a great race. So Roosevelt, we appreciate your enthusiasm and your comments, my friend, and we appreciate your loyalty to this show. So thank you again for jumping in the live chat there. We really appreciate it. So I'm sure we'll hear from Roosman even before the end of this show, and of course next week as well, and so on. So Roosman, we're gonna move on to topic number 9 here. And topic number 9, it's going to be the Red Sox swept away over the weekend. And folks, there you see the live chat in the screen right there, and you can check that out throughout the show as well. So Ruseman just chatted in the live chat. You can also jump in the live chat on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, jump in that live chat, check it out. 1,000%, and you can really contribute to the show, not just be a viewer, but also be a participant, which is also always a lot of fun. But the Red Sox got swept away over the weekend by the Yankees, and as a Red Sox fan, this just chaps our ass that this happened over the weekend, Brandon. What do you think about the Red Sox getting swept? And now, not on the outside looking in yet with the wild card, but right on the edge there of possibly even losing that second wild card spot.
Yeah, no, well, just like you said, hey, if you're new to this show, give us a follow, give us a subscribe here, because we're on a mission to 1,000 subs. We need you to hit that sub button. Bang, bang, bang. Hit it really quick. That red button, just hit it. But yeah, I mean, the Red Sox, man, they need to hit that red button and get some help, that help button, because they've been having it's just up and down with them, man. I'm getting sick of it, to be honest. I'm getting sick of it. It's too much up and down, man. One week they're playing great. The next week they're looking horrible. Chris Sale bugging out on the mound last night and then, giving up those runs. It just is not a good look right now. They just can't be consistent. And I'm saying it's not a good look even if you do make the playoffs, that you can't consistently play good, because we know once you make the playoffs, if you want to go ahead and win the big one, win the World Series, you're going to have to be consistent and win some games and win series. So it's just right now, it's too much up and down. And I'm just worried about will they even make it? They're right on the cusp there going in with just a few games left. But will they secure that spot? And then how will they play? What consistency will we get out of this team in the playoffs? And, is it going to be the team that we saw earlier in the season that was unstoppable? Is it going to be the team that we saw in the middle of the season that looked like one of the worst teams in the major leagues? Or is it going to be that team as of recent that was 1 week they're up, the next week they're down? So I just got a lot of questions on this team, more questions than answers right now. And I think that's not a good thing to have going into the playoffs. But being a fan, I'm still going to root for them. I hope they can pull it together and really give us that team that, like I said, looked unstoppable at the beginning of the season.
Right. They have 5 games left. They're against Baltimore the next 2, and then the Washington Nationals the 3 to end the year. And now all those games matter. I mean, if you don't win 4 out of the last 5, you're going to be on the outside looking in if you're the Red Sox, because you put yourself in this situation. Not only did they get swept by the Yankees over the weekend, they just lost to Baltimore last night with Chris Sale on the mound. So it's like, what are they doing? There's no sense of urgency, I feel like, with this team right now. They're in a place where they're barely hanging on to that second wild card spot. The Yankees are clearly better than them. I mean, they're going to have, if they do make that second wild card place, I know it's horrible to say, I don't want to do it, but they are. And, you know, it's funny, back in early to late spring and early summer, when the Red Sox swept the Yankees over the weekend, we did a segment saying the Yankees might be done for the season here. And then they made a bunch of moves at the deadline. It's clearly given them some life and given them some juice throughout the second half of the season. And now they come back and sweep the Red Sox. It's reversed. And we've seen this before where the Yankees might have swept the Red Sox earlier in the year, and then the Red Sox come back in later on in the season and have a sweep of the Yankees and make the playoffs. And we've seen these teams do this in the past, but the Red Sox right now, they need to have a sense of urgency. The game for the rest of the season really needs to matter for them. They're only a half game up on the Seattle Mariners right now for that second wild card spot. They got to beat Baltimore these next 2 games and at least win 2 out of 3 against the Nationals to secure themselves in that second wild card spot. And then they're going to probably have to play the Yankees in that wild card play-in game, or not a play-in game because they technically both are playoff teams. But the 2 wild card teams play each other in that one game to then advance to the divisional round, and they're going to probably have to play the Yankees. So a switch has to be flipped here in the last week or so of the season for this Red Sox team.
Well, here's my analyst side as a coach. If I'm the coach of the Boston Red Sox, I'm saying, hey, now's playoff time. I don't care what it says on the schedule. If you guys want to get to those big games, we've got to go into playoff mode now. We've got to tighten it up. Every game matters. Every at-bat matters, and we can't make any mistakes in these last 5 games. Now is playoff mode, and we've all got to, agree in this clubhouse that we're going to turn it on right now. We're not going to look back. And so I think that's really one of those things. If they're committed to getting into the playoffs, they've got to put it on, and they've got to turn it on now. And so it's just really one of those things where consistency is, key in everything and everything in life, and definitely in professional sports. So we've really got to see them turn it on and keep it on. But let's roll on to a great topic tonight. Rolling on and rocking on to topic number 10 of the night, our final topic of the night, and that's the great topic of Ohio FU. And I thought this was a funny topic name. You could put a couple of names in there, but I kept just going back to Ohio FU because that's what happened in the end with the Ohio State player quitting mid-game, during the game, walking off the field, and then going into the clubhouse and tweeting Ohio State FU. And he used the full term.
Yes. I think everybody at home knows what you're talking about. Kevon Pope, senior linebacker for this Ohio State team, 4-year player. I don't believe he's gotten a lot of minutes for this team over the last 4 seasons. It's Ohio State. You have NFL players on that roster. And I guess what happened during the game is that Pope, was supposed to be called in for the next defensive series. Ohio State was up big on Akron because Akron should not be playing Ohio State. I don't get it. But it's an in-state team that they schedule early in the season. So they're spanking Akron late in the first half, I believe, is when it happened, because then he got escorted out even before halftime. And Pope was supposed to go in. They whistled for Pope to go in. And then one of the coaches says, oh, wait a minute, you got to come back out. We're using a different a different defensive group or something to that effect. I don't know if it was anything he did or if they were just using different personnel. But he said, screw everybody else. I don't want to be here. He started flipping out on Ryan Day, flipping out on the coaching staff, and all hell broke loose with him. And I think he just lost it. We do have to remember that some of these guys are 22 years old. He's a senior, but he's 22. He's still young, and he really acted immaturely on the sideline. I mean, you're a player. There's times when you're just not going to be put in the game, and you're clearly not going to be necessarily an NFL player. I mean, if he hasn't played at this point with Ohio State, he's probably not playing in the NFL. You never know. But, this is just not the way to handle this. And one of the reasons why it's good, I think, for some of these athletes to go to college is for these types of situations where they do realize finally that they're not the best on the field, and they have to work to get on the field to begin with. And I think he's one of those guys who, he hasn't gotten his way this entire time in Ohio State, and he finally flipped out. He thought he would play in a game that turned out to be a blowout against an inferior team, and he got pulled out again, and I think he just lost it. I think it was the last straw for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was one of those things where we've got a player that is using up his 4 years of eligibility and not seeing the field much. And then, obviously expecting to go in the game there when it's a blowout, and then gets called off the field, whether it was a personnel decision or a package decision. And then he just lost it. He just completely lost it, lost his cool, and said, you know what, I'm out of here, man. And Ohio State, F you. He threw his gloves into the stands, and then that's when they really were like, all right, we've got to escort you out of here. And for most of you guys that don't understand these Division I programs, those gloves aren't theirs. They're the programs. They're given to them every game, and then the player is expected to turn the gloves in along with his uniform back into the team equipment manager so the equipment manager can get him ready for the next game. So him just throwing those gloves into the stands, it's not like he threw his own personal gloves out there. He threw Ohio State's property out there and cost his team even some, pair of gloves, which obviously that's not a big deal in Division I program. But I'm just giving you the insights because a lot of people are like, oh, that's not a big deal with us throwing his gloves into the stands. Like it kind of is, especially the Division I programs that are paying all this money year after year. And so it was a big deal. And I think this is one of those things where the writing was on the wall for him early, and he kind of made the poor decision. If I was this guy, by the time I was a sophomore and I was realizing I wasn't getting on the field much, that's the time to enter the transfer portal, buddy, because you're running out of years of eligibility. Instead, he decided to stay at Ohio State. He's used up his 4 years of eligibility now. And then now he runs into this thing that it happens and he loses his mind. His career is pretty much done because he has minimal, a half a season of eligibility left. If I'm any Division I coach, I don't want to bring that on, to be honest, and especially with the headache and having to answer the questions of bringing it on after he just did this. So I've got to say his NFL career is out of the window. Obviously, it was before that because he wasn't seeing the field. But his playing days of football are pretty much done at this point, unless he wants to go play rec football or, in the minor leagues per se, or arena league or something like that. But it's just like his days of Ohio State and Division I football are definitely done. But I will got to say, it's one of those things where people were comparing it to some movies where when you're like quitting your job and you want to go out big and go out in style, I guess that's the way you do it. And he kind of did that with his big Ohio FU, as we're calling it.
Yeah, the other thing too is, and I know he gave everybody the bird when he was leaving, and he had to be escorted out. But then he goes on Twitter and tells Ohio State to FU. And if these guys, this is where it's great that people are on Twitter. Being on social media for some of these college athletes now is getting them paid, which is great. But it's one of the reasons where if I was a younger college or professional athlete, I'd lay off of Twitter, because then he goes on and says, Ohio State FU. If he didn't do that, but just stormed out and then came back, didn't say a word to anybody, and then came back the next day and said to Coach Day, to the team, I screwed up. It was the heat of the moment. I'm on the sidelines. I thought I was so excited to get in. I completely messed up. You guys want to punish me? If you want me to sit out the next game, I'll do that. He could have kind of, made penance with the team, and maybe would have gotten a shot the rest of the year. Now, because he goes on Twitter and does that, I believe they kicked him off the program. I'm 100% sure on that, but I think he's now completely out of the Ohio State program. I mean, now, once you go on Twitter and do that, you're done. So, that's kind of an instance where social media really hurts a college athlete, because sometimes when you're that emotional about something, you just can't help yourself. So I hope the guy, is okay from here on out. I mean, I hope he does get another chance somewhere with the minimal amount of eligibility that he has left, but it doesn't look promising for that young man. So not a great situation for him. Folks, that's going to do it here for Comeback Sports this week. We had some great topics as always. Again, if you want to call into the show, we have that call-in number for you, folks. You can call in live during the show if you want to check us out, ask a question, if you want to leave a comment, if you want to do any of that stuff. We have that call-in number on the screen throughout the show. So make sure you check that out. Give us a call. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Give us a like on YouTube, but subscriptions help you. All the content is fed right to your subscription channel, so do that as well. And also, if you want to participate in the show, you can go to our live chat on YouTube. We'll bring your live chat up on the screen. We'll read it out loud. Rusamon Reese is always doing a great job participating in the show. He's always got comments for us. He does a fantastic job. Brandon, any final words here on Comeback Sports before we sign off for the week?
Well, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing what big topics pop up in sports for us to talk about, but I know I'll be looking forward to the Turkish Grand Prix and seeing if Lewis Hamilton can win 2 in a row and get 101 wins and, edge out a little bit more of a lead over Max Verstappen. That's what I'll be rooting for.
Yeah, we'll see if that league gets a little bit wider. Does Max kind of leapfrog Lewis Hamilton? It's going to be fascinating end of the season for F1 racing. Folks, we'll see you next time here on Comeback Sports. Have a good week, everybody.